welcome back to the latest instalment of Terrace Talk. It's a trip over the Humber Bridge this weekend for Norwich City. Hull City, of course, is where we're heading. Looking forward to this game. With that, delighted to be joined by Nathaniel from the Hull and Back podcast. Delighted to have you back on the channel, speaking all things Tigers. This season maybe less enjoyable, I'd imagine, than previous ones when we've spoken. Looking at recent results, 2-0 defeat, of course, last night to Burnley, 2-1 defeat to Stoke at home at the weekend. Off the back of a couple of more positive results, an away win at Millwall, an away win at Sheffield United. I suppose what's kind of the recent weeks been like at Hull?
Well, it's been following football since about February last season, when we finished the season poorly, and then the Euros was miserable. Even though we got to the final, every game was miserable. And this season, we had 3 wins in a row with Tim Volter earlier on, and then since then it's been, I think I've said miserable twice already. I'm going to say it a third time. We have improved under Seers. Our away form has been pretty good up until we just lost to Burnley, but everyone, doesn't score against Burnley, so that's fair enough. We just kept the 3 away wins in a row with clean sheets, which was very solid, but I'm terrified because our home form is the worst in the league. I think if we were to win the next 3 home games, we'd still have the worst home record in the league, or pretty close. So, yeah, I'm a bit scared for Saturday. We've improved under Seers, but yeah, the last few weeks have been very confusing because we lost at home to Stoke after having beaten Sheffield United away from home. We're probably one of the only teams that could do that 2 games, and we'd be like, oh yeah, that's typical City.
Yeah, you mentioned that home form. I'm just going to grab a screenshot of that.
Just horrible.
And I'm sorry to show you that. Yeah, it doesn't make for pretty reading. I mean, what's gone wrong at home this season? The away form, as you mentioned, pretty strong. Is it a change of style? What do you put it down to?
Oh, I wish I knew. But to be fair, it's been an issue for quite a long time. Even when we got promoted from League One, though our home form was pretty good because we won the league, we usually won every home game 1-0 and every away game about 4-0. It's been quite a long time. Pretty much this half decade, our home form's been pretty poor. The time when Rossini came in, I think 3 seasons ago, we had decent home form at that point. But I think we've been a counter-attacking team. We put a lot of reliance on the wingers, whether that is Philogene last season or the injured Miller and Balumi this season. We've put a lot of emphasis on them to counter-attack. We haven't had strikers that are very quick. I mean, we had Betty Sharp last season, so he's not really going to get in behind. And I think generally, as you might have seen, pretty much every match, bar perhaps if you go to Portsmouth, the away fans will be singing football in a library. I think since COVID, I was going to say performances. The performance of the fans has definitely, left a lot to be desired recently. But the MKM, I think it's a modern stadium. It's never been that good an atmosphere, compared to like a Crystal Palace or something where they've got those old stands and it's all compact. And I think because of the way we've played under Rossini and Volter, and now slightly less Sayers, we've put a lot of emphasis on keeping the ball, and that isn't exciting to watch when you're passing the ball around your centre-backs and the goalkeeper a lot. So I think it's been an issue for a few years, and we're just a bit apathetic. Is that a word?
Yeah,
at home?
That's a word, yep.
Yeah, we had a good home performance against Leeds because that's a big match for us. It's not really a derby, but it's pretty much the closest we have, bar if we're playing Grimsby or Scunthorpe, and we don't play them anymore. But normally the atmosphere is not very good, and I think as soon as the team goes 1-0 down, the fans get very frustrated because the home form's just been so poor for a very long time now.
Yeah, obviously you mentioned a few of the key players that maybe left in the summer, the likes of Philogene, Delap, Greaves, all to a club we don't speak about on this channel. Compared to last season, we were tussling for that kind of... Yeah, also we were tussling for playoffs last season. This year's been quite the drop-off for Hull, as you've outlined there. I mean, do you think you've got the tools and the players in the building to survive? Obviously done a lot of business in January, but, it's not the greatest of position to be in at the moment.
No, we're not very many points or wins away from staying up. because I think we do have a good set of fixtures, probably the best set of fixtures from anyone in the division. We have to play the 3 bottom teams at home. Of course, they're home games, so I'm not too sure about that. Equally, we're 2 points off the bottom of the table, and I think we've spent the 4th or 5th most money. I think behind Middlesbrough, Luton, probably some of the teams at the very top of the league as well. I mean, it'd be crazy if Luton and us go down with the amount of money we spent, to be honest. The issue is just that we've spent it on the wrong people. There's been a bit of a rebuild in January. We've signed 8 players. We're probably lacking any good fullbacks. We have the captain, Louis Coyle, whose form's really dropped off, and Cody Drame has just been very inconsistent. At right back and at left back, we have Matty Jacob, who's an academy product who is promising, but he's only played about 20 games in his whole career. And then Sean McLaughlin, who is the slowest left back you would ever see because he's a centre back. And he's too slow to play at centre back, to be honest. So even though we have signed a lot of players, and you're looking at Louis Barry to come in on loan from Villa to basically do what Philogene did last season and get us the goals to stay up. At times, it feels like no matter how well we play, we will have mistakes from our fullbacks and concede a sloppy goal from a cross that we should do better with. We do have enough to stay up, and I think Ruben Seers is a good manager and has improved us. But I just feel like time is running out. We really just need to win a home game, and hopefully that carries us with a bit of momentum. But we just need a bit of luck to get over the line, because I think it's just such a psychological barrier at the moment.
Yeah, you mentioned Seers there. Of course, last time we played you at Carrow Road, you had Tim Volter in the dugout. You've now got Seers. Have you seen sort of any drastic changes from him in terms of the setup, the formation, the sort of style of play? Has he changed and tinkered much?
Well, we can win a game now, which is nice. I think mostly it's been that the players, that the underlying statistics, the expected goals, if you're into that sort of thing, had been relatively reasonable under Tim Volter. If we'd just been anywhere near close to reaching those sort of expected goals targets, we wouldn't be in the bottom 3. But I think, motivation, management's been a whole lot better under Ruben Seers. He's taken a few risks. I mean, I don't know whether you saw, but Abu Kamara was sort of not thrown under the bus, but he was in a press conference with the manager, which is quite rare, after a social media post he put out, basically congratulating someone who he used to play with who scored for Portsmouth when we'd just lost, and it's probably Kamara's fault we conceded. And of course, you know a lot about Kamara because of the Norwich connection. And then, of course, he scored 2 goals against Leeds in the next match. So that was a big risk from Seers to do that, but it's paid off. Although I'd probably drop Kamara for Louis Barry for the match. Although, of course, he might score against his former side. And then the other main difference is that we actually have a midfield now. And we've seen Puerta and Alzate and new signing Matazo actually get on the ball, whereas before we used to basically bypass the midfield, and players like Marvin Merlim and Abdush Amr, who have both left the club now on loan, but there's no way they're going to be coming back. They just sort of went invisible, like Foden at the Euros, just completely absent.
Yeah, in terms of January, we did speak a little bit about it, but have any of those individuals sort of stepped up and showed their quality early doors? I know Geldhart scored a pretty tidy goal a few weeks back, and you've sort of added a bit of championship experience, I suppose, with the likes of Egan and Barry. Obviously, you mentioned stepping up. So is there any of those individuals that caught the eye early on?
Well, I think Elliot Matazo looks like a very good signing. I don't know whether that's really improved us, because I think, like we've had it a few times before, Gustavo Puerta on loan from Bayer Leverkusen, I think if he plays one more match, or maybe we're waiting a few until there's not that many games left, but I think if he gets to a certain appearance total, we have to pay the money to buy him. So that's why he's not been playing. So we've basically replaced Puerta with Matazo. It's not improved our midfield. But Matazo and Crooks and Gelhart have all scored, and they're all new signings. And Egan, you wouldn't exactly expect him to score, but we really did need a bit of experience at the back because it's a very young squad, especially in the defensive areas. Louis Barry's the main one, scoring, I think, 16 goals for Stockport in League One. We really need him to hit the ground running. I'm sure he'll start, because he hasn't started yet, on Saturday So really, if he's half as good as Philogene, I imagine we probably can scrape by the skin of our teeth 21st, which is really embarrassing considering we wanted to be finishing pretty much where we did last year. I knew it was going to be tough. Maybe we'd have to sort of settle for 13th, 14th, something like that. But it's kind of ridiculous that over 2/3 of the way through the season, we're in this situation.
Yeah, the owners still viewed in the same way. I know when they sort of arrived, it was kind of a fresh sort of breath of fresh air, I suppose, in the way they arrived and changed from previous ownership that'd been so poor for years, and kind of the poor attendances. I know there was ticket issues and all sorts down the years. So I know sort of last January, I remember being at the MKM when you unveiled Carvalho and all the kind of hype around that. And at that point, everything felt really positive. I maybe seen a few sort of bits and pieces that some fans are maybe not so happy with the way they've approached it this season. Are you still on board with them as owners?
Yeah, I mean, this season is the only season they've got really terribly wrong. In the past, we have had to sign a lot of players, but that's because the quality of the squad we had wasn't very good, because we'd had just come up from League One when they became the new owners. So I can understand why they would want to sign the 20 players that they did. But it all depends on the next, is it 16 games or 15 games? I can't remember how many we've got left. If we actually stay up, I think we might have a chance at a playoff push next year. But if we go down, we'll probably win the league if we can stay, financially stable. It's a ridiculous thing to say that we're in the relegation zone and I think we can have a playoff push, but I think Seers and signing a left back would actually help a lot to have a full season with that. But yeah, if we go down, it is their fault, because the recruitment in the summer was truly terrible. It was going to be difficult to replace Greaves and Philogene, but we probably didn't get as much money for them as we should have done. And, £5 million on Abu Kamara, that signing has not worked out. He's probably not worth half that now. The only club that would probably pay that is Portsmouth, because they love him so much, but they don't have £5 million to spend, unfortunately for us. The thing is, when he became the owner, a lot of people said that he would leave us, completely dead and buried in League Two in a few seasons. They've just taken, 30 to 40 million euros or so to get us at that point. I mean, obviously the players that we've signed, like Ryan Giles, were quite well rated before we signed them. So it's not necessarily just down to the ownership. But big questions will be asked, and I think desperately the amount of money we're spending, I guess, is fine if you spend it on the right sort of people. But Adrian Elagella, the owner, he's too excitable, and he really does need someone like a good director of football to tell him what to do. I think the issue, allegedly, because I might get us into trouble if I don't say allegedly, Tan Kessler, who was very close to Adrian, he was sort of the director of football, and he has allegedly taken money out of the club to buy property in London. And, he was the guy we thought was on the ball and knew what he was doing. And it turns out the complete opposite. So maybe it's partly his fault as well, allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly, not the greatest situation that at all. But yeah, obviously all these things have to have that term allegedly before and after them. On Abu Kamara, you mentioned him, 2 goals, 2 assists. Obviously, Norwich fans know all about him. Left in pretty sort of under a cloud almost, the way he pushed himself out of the club, got his move to Hull, and I know initially he really struggled, picked up a little bit of form, sort of what December time when Sellers first arrived. You mentioned that press conference, and after that with the Leeds result, but. You said sort of poor value for money, maybe worth half of that at the moment. So I'm assuming the whole fans have still not taken to him quite yet.
No, I think he scored the 2 goals against Leeds, which is great, but you really need to kick on from there, because even so, a brace against Leeds, that's fantastic. But as someone that we've spent the most money on in the summer out of all the signs we've made, and he's a young attacking English player, you have a lot of expectation for him basically to be the next Philogene, and for him to not really kick on from that point. And it's also just the way he looks, that he looks sort of lazy and lackadaisical, doesn't look like he really cares, and defensively he's not putting the shift in that he needs to do. So I'd much rather have Louis Barry and Joe Gelhardt, because Gelhardt really gets stuck in and maybe is a bit rash. Kamara has been beating his man quite a lot, but the end product's not quite there. And I think the issue we've had is Kamara has been playing so many games this season because Miller and Balumi and everyone else has been injured. You don't really want to just be playing someone because they're the only player you've got. We have other options now. And so as soon as it's possible, I'd much rather have Gelhardt and, one of the top scorers in English football this season, Barry. That'd be much better.
Indeed. Of course, back in October, we clashed at Carrow Road. Norwich came out 4-0 winners on that occasion. Tim Volter, of course, getting ultimately a lot of stick after that. It wasn't long after where, of course, he got the push and booted out of the club. But in terms of that game, sort of are you expecting, I suppose, a completely different game on Saturday, given you've now got Sellers in the dugout? Obviously, it's at your place, albeit, we mentioned the form's maybe not the greatest at home for Hull. So what are your sort of memories, I suppose, of that particular occasion? And can you expect anything similar or different on Saturday?
Well, it's one of the few games this season where the other team has been very clearly much better. Because a lot of the times we've lost, that's because we've made mistakes or it's just been by one goal. Norwich were one of the few teams to really make the most of how bad we actually were under Volta, or at least how high the line was. I think it was 4-0. It could have been about 7-2 or something, 8-2. 9-2, because Norwich's counter-attacking football was really, really good. I'm not surprised that they have sort of pushed on a little bit higher up the league now, judging by that performance. I don't expect us to lose 4-0 again, and it might actually help that we're playing a team that isn't just going to sit back. That's been the frustrating thing, that teams like Stoke have come to the MKM, done nothing, and left with 3 points because they just sort of sit back. And I don't blame them, because that is what you do. You pump the ball into our box. You have not much possession, and you will score if you just cross it in. Whereas Norwich might be a little bit more ambitious, judging by the football they played in the Carrow Road game. So it might help us a little bit. That's probably a grasp, because if Borja Sainz, is he available now?
He is indeed, returned on Tuesday.
Whoever it is at right back, if Sainz is he a left winger?
He is, yep.
Whoever is at right back for us, Coyle or Drame, is going to have to retire from professional football after the match, because they're going to get completely destroyed, I think.
Yeah, so in terms of key players for this game, Sainz, of course, is a danger man for Norwich. Sargent, of course, always a danger at this level. But some teams, it's really easy to kind of pick out an individual that's been brilliant. Hull, I've kind of looked down, and it's really difficult for me to pick an individual. So you that watches them every week, who's maybe the star player or key player that Norwich fans should be aware of?
Well, if he starts, I think Barry's the one that all the expectations on. But judging off, he's only played 60 minutes of Championship football, and that's off the bench for us. You can't put too much expectation on him to be our top scorer. Though our top scorer currently has 5 goals, so he's got a chance, to be fair. I think other than that, Alzate, I'd be surprised if he's still at the club 2 years from now. Maybe we can keep him if we stay up next year, but I think he could probably end up in the Premier League for one of those sort of yo-yo clubs again. He just seems so composed on the ball, and I'm just shocked that the 2 best signings we've made this season are the free agents we signed in September, rather than any of the players we've spent money on in the summer. But yeah, Alzate, I think, if he were to get injured, then our midfield wouldn't be as successful.
Yeah, before I get your prediction, is there any injuries or key suspensions heading into this game? You mentioned maybe a few individuals that have been out for sustained periods. That's meant Kamara's had to start. So is there any kind of players you're expecting to miss this clash?
Well, the players that have been injured aren't new injuries. They've been out for a little while. I think we've got Casey Palmer and Charlie, who's coming back after the Norwich game. I think the main one to say is that we've signed Lincoln from Fenerbahce, one of the many Fenerbahce signings. He's not yet fit. Just a little inside joke for any Hull fans watching. It's not like us to sign a player from the Turkish league who's injured when we've signed him and never plays. Of course, all of them, that happens to every single one of them. So I'm not surprised by that, really.
Yeah, so moving on to Saturday, how do you see it unfolding? I mean, Norwich have won the last 4 clashes between these two sides, but prior to that win at, last season at the MKM, they hadn't won for there since 2007, so not been a particularly happy hunting ground for us. So with all that and all the context we've spoken around in this show, how do you see it unfolding and a score prediction for Saturday?
Well, Norwich aren't as strong away from home, but it doesn't matter how bad you are away from home. We're worse at home somehow. So I think maybe it could be, it's been 2-1 QPR, 2-1 Stoke. I wouldn't be surprised if Norwich came away 2-1 winners again. I think maybe the next home match after this we have to target is 3 points, which is the Plymouth game. That's a huge one. If Coyle decides to take one for the team and just completely crunch Sainz in the first 5 minutes after we've already conceded, maybe we can nick a draw.
Yeah, it's only crumb of comfort. I think Norwich fans are not overly in an optimistic mood heading to up your neck of the woods.
It doesn't matter. It's a lovely stadium. The food is lovely. The footy scran is award winning. The prices are pretty good. And you're going to get 3 points. So really, a best away ground to go to in the Championship at the moment.
There we go. Nathaniel's just sold that to any Norwich fan not making the trip to Hull. Why not make it on Saturday? It sounds like it could be a good day out. Before we round off, just want to quickly plug the podcast you're involved in. I know there's a couple of them. So where can we find you and your whole content?
Well, if you just look up to Hun and Back podcast, you can find that. It's probably best to be on YouTube or Twitter. We record an episode every Sunday night, but we've also signed up with a sort of local radio station. That's Tigers Talk on a Wednesday night on the same To Hun and Back channel as well.
Excellent. We'll link that good stuff down below. Nathaniel, really appreciate your time this evening. Great to have you back on the show speaking about Hull City. Of course, best of luck for the rest of the season after Saturday. Hopefully, we'll be still in the Championship next season playing you guys. I don't think we're going to be going up. And, so you've got plenty to play for there. That will round this show off. Of course, we were down at Colney today, the press conference with Johannes Ofthrop live on our YouTube channel now. We'll have Tactics Board tomorrow morning and everything else building up to this game. And, of course, Team News live from the MKM Stadium, 2 p.m. on Saturday. Looking forward to this one. Always enjoy a trip to Hull. The footy scran, as Nathaniel outlined, is always tempting. So looking forward to indulging in that on Saturday. Of course, thanks for joining us on this show, and we'll see you in the next one.